So we just concluded 2 days of meetings with our Board of Governors. Bunch of issues were on the agenda. First and foremost, I think you all know at this point, because we issued a release, that the board voted to explore expansion in Las Vegas and Seattle. I'm excited about that opportunity. We've had discussions with elected officials, both in Las Vegas and Seattle and Nevada and the state of Washington. We have long histories in both of those markets, of course. We had a franchise in Seattle for over 40 years. We have a WNBA franchise in Seattle right now, and there's an enormous amount of passion for NBA basketball and WNBA basketball in that market. In Las Vegas, again, we have a WNBA team in Las Vegas, been there for several years now with great success. And I used to joke with both Mayors Goodman, Oscar and Carolyn, that it was as if we had a franchise in Las Vegas already with our summer league, given that we occupy that 2-week plus period in July. It's become a major place of operation for the league, and we've had multiple USA basketball training camps there as well. So I think two markets with deep basketball roots and deep connections to the NBA, and we're excited to begin that process. As we said in the press release, we are in the process of engaging an investment bank here in New York City called PJT. It's led by someone named Paul Taubman, who's been working with our league for decades. Actually was part of a process when we expanded to Canada roughly 30 years ago. So he's very familiar with the league, as is his organization. And as I said, I anticipate enormous interest in both those opportunities. Mark Tatum, our Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Commissioner, who's here today, gave an update to our board on ongoing discussions in terms of creating a new league in Europe. There were no votes taken on that. It was more of an update. But I think, as many of you are aware, we are out in the market right now. We have different bankers working on that opportunity. JP Morgan and another organization known as RAIN, two investment bankers who are soliciting interest. There are 12 separate markets we're looking at the moment. Over 100 organizations are currently involved in this process. And as I said, once again, there been enormous enthusiasm. We have ongoing discussions with the existing basketball infrastructure in Europe, both through our federation, FIBA, through the various country leagues, and the Euro League. And again, think that basketball globally remains as #2 sport, maybe fastest growing sport in the world. And it seems to be, whether on the men's side or the women's side, we see tremendous interest in continuing to grow the game. So I would say virtually everything we covered at the board meeting was very positive. One topic not so positive, and that's ongoing tanking issues in the league. We had a lengthy conversation about the issue. I will say, and again, as I've said this before, this is not a new issue in this league. You could go back to the 60s when coin tosses were used to determine who got the first pick, then into the 80s when a draft lottery was created. That lottery has been modified 4 times since then. Obviously, it does not seem to be operating optimally where we are now. This may be an unusual year because of a perception of such a deep draft. I'd say that's combined with the advent of advanced analytics in all the sports, that teams are now making sort of calculations in terms of opportunities and risks and rewards, and I understand where that incentive takes our teams. This meeting was not about pointing fingers at any team in particular. Again, I understand where the incentives are. We understand why it results in certain behavior, and I will say it seemed unanimous in the room that we needed to make a change, and we needed to make a change for next season. Exactly what that change is, we're continuing to work on. No votes were taken today. I think there's also unanimous agreement that we need to make this change in advance of the draft and free agency this year, so all the teams understand the rules of the road going into next year. That means we will most likely have a special board meeting in May, in which at that point we will vote on whatever modification we come up with. We've been hard at work on this issue for several months now. That's led by Byron Spruell and Evan Wash and James Jones in the league office. Of course, we have a competition committee. They've been working on that issue with us. We've been talking separately to our general managers. I do think ultimately this is a decision that needs to be made at the ownership level. It has business implications, has basketball implications, has integrity implications for the league. So it's one that we take very seriously, and we are going to fix it, full stop. And I want to say that directly to our fans. And I recognize, too, that it puts even fans in many cases in an odd position, because it's become lore that in many corners of the league that the worst place to be is a middle-of-the-road team. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think even teams that are trying hard to compete with the rosters they have, in many cases are being told by their fans that they're better off being bad or somehow manipulating the system to be worse than maybe they really are, and that puts enormous pressure on our teams. So, as I said, incentives need to be fixed, and we will fix them, and I'm looking forward to that. Lastly, there was a discussion around the WNBA. The NBA proper owns over 40% of the WNBA. Then when you take the various team interests that are WNBA team interests that are represented by NBA owners, probably close to 80% of the league of the WNBA is owned by NBA interests. So there's great interest in the league. People were extremely happy about the fact that the collective bargaining situation was resolved in time to save training camp and free agency and the season. We, of course, have 2 expansion teams joining us. We talked about how that process is going, the benefits to operating these 2 leagues in parallel, and that there are things that are done differently, things that are done collectively. But I think that what came out of the room was just, again, people were very pleased with where we came out on the WNBA side. And I've talked to many players directly and read the reports coming out of collective bargaining, and I'm really pleased that both sides feel that it's a fair outcome. I think that's very important when you go through a process like that. So, Tim, with that.